If we come to your last chapter, and there's a selfish aspect to reconciliation. I was writing to someone about this yesterday, that everything else depends on reconciliation. If we look at questions of international development, I've been in places where they've built schools and clinics and hospitals, and then there's a conflict, someone comes and knocks them down with a rocket-propelled grenade that costs perhaps 1/10,000th of what it costs to build the thing, and they have to start all over again. Peace with others offers us the chance of peace with ourselves. But peace and justice are absolutely inextricably tied together. You can't have peace in injustice. Yet all over the world we give ourselves the illusion there's peace when there is no justice. If we look at the Syrophoenician woman and Jesus, what does that teach us about our own reconciliation and issues of justice?
Yeah, the Syrophoenician woman story, of course, that is interpreted in many ways within the mission context, within the miracle context. But reading that in the background, I felt that actually that is actually a powerful text for talking about peace with justice. And because of the injustice done by the tyrants to the people of Galilee, and because Tyre depended a lot on Galilee for food, and lots of food was exported from Galilee to Tyre, and that's a background. And now the whole thing begins for me with the whole conversations, which became difficult for me. Perhaps before I came to this reflection, perhaps this was one of the very difficult texts for me to understand Jesus personally. Oh, Jesus, who is, because when I came to church, I saw in the attitudes of people welcoming, openness and compassion. And suddenly, and then I believed that this all they are witnessing, they are living what Jesus started, and that's what actually impacted me. And suddenly I see here, Jesus is just telling, no, I cannot
go away,
dogs. But then in the background, so that was actually for many years that's a very difficult text for me. But then this background, where what was going on between Tyre and Galilee, and the woman's own status, because there's a very interesting word used for the mattress, because when at the end, when the daughter is healed, the word is actually used that depicts that actually she's from the high state. Her status was high in the society compared to the other miracle stories which were involved. So these all actually, I would say that it is Jesus before doing the miracle. Of course, he was the one who he's the one who goes to Tyre to make the relationship, make reconciliation, because they've been hating each other. But the conversation with the woman, when she accepts that, yes, the dogs will wait for the food. That's basically the understanding is that tyrants should actually wait for the food rather than steal, rather than just take it away. So I see that as actually she affirms that justice needs to be done, and at which time the peace becomes possible through the healing.
It's extraordinary. And we all know the story from Sunday school of Jesus and Zacchaeus. And it's the most, I love the story. It's such a beautiful story of both reconciliation and restoration, overcoming the opposition of the community in the most dramatic and powerful way. There are so many examples where we have some sort of the beginnings of reconciliation. Just begins the first few steps, signs a peace agreement, and then somehow there is no restoration, and it all goes through our fingers like water. Are there particular present-day instances where you see the need for restoration as well as reconciliation, or restoration to put foundations into reconciliation?
Yeah, actually, without going to any specific conflicts, I would say that the most of the conflicts persist, or even some kind of peace agreement doesn't stand, and most of the time that is because the justice is not done, and if justice is done, that peace or the reconciliation will actually stay. And in the Bible, obviously, for me also, this is very interesting story, and in fact it is very unique. The Zacchaeus story is very, very unique, because we got lots of examples for how conflicts happen, and but then how restoration and reconciliation happen together. It's very, very rarely. Maybe the only other time it comes close to that, but it's really not, is actually what Jacob does towards Esau. But it's not like Zacchaeus.
And it doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, and then the fear continues, and that's very different. The end is different. But in the current context, I would actually more of the global issues rather than going to the specific one. I would say that the slavery is one issue. Slavery is abolished, but
is there restoration? Is there justice?
So that's one thing.
It's a fascinating example you picked. I lived in Liverpool for 4 years. It was built on slave money, a city that is deeply, deeply conscious of its background, very healthily conscious of that. And the Liverpool Slavery Museum brings this out. And the need for restoration is brought out in the museum in the docks with great power. So that really resonates with me when you pick that example of slavery. Perhaps also colonialism.